one of the things that we actually wrote in the job description was we hire based on attitude, flexibility, competency, and commitment. And we really stuck to that. And until today, I'm really proud of that. That's really kind of what we were looking for and how we kind of like broke it down, when we were looking at the different CVs or getting on the calls. And if I'm telling you which, kind of specific traits I was looking for, I would say that one of the most important was empathy and emotional intelligence. Our community was a community of nonprofits. So, they work hard all the time to support others. It was so important to me that they had that empathy and support from us. Strong communication skills, key. Organizational skills were really important. You're working also with a lot of data and information, and you have to be organized and on top of it. Creativity and fast learners, because like I said, if you don't have that experience, but if you're a fast learner and you have all those other soft skills, you can get there. You can learn it and get the job done and be an amazing community professional.
Hey everyone, I'm Joel Premack, host of the Community-Led Growth Show. Today I'm joined by Tali Leibowitz, head of community at Agave Health. Thank you so much for joining us today, Tali.
Thanks so much for having me, Joel. I'm really happy to be here.
Of course, I'm so excited to have you. And thank you so much for doing this all the way from Israel. So we're so excited to have you.
Thanks.
Let's start off with today's conversation with a super easy question. Would you please give all of our listeners a quick 30-second intro about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Tali Leibowitz, and I'm head of community at Agave Health. In my spare time, I founded a social impact community called Upward Spiral. I'm really proud of that. My background is in psychology and marketing, and then I made the very natural transition into community a few years ago. And yeah, just really passionate about social impact, remote work, community, and also an avid foodie.
Nice. I also love community and remote work, mild foodie. I care about food, but we have a tough relationship sometimes. That's for a different day now. In a past role, I did a little bit of research and I learned that you were in charge of growing and leading a global community team. So as the leader of a global community team, were you at all nervous about this new experience?
Definitely. I'll say I was probably nervous about leading a team in general because it was the first time in my professional career that I was in charge of hiring and managing a team this size. And I was also going to be the first one in the company to be hiring remotely/globally. We were a small startup, so we had no recruiter or HR function. So I was essentially doing all those roles by myself in addition to my community role. So there was a lot of nerves going on with this.
How did you balance that effectively of being in a role, but also trying to grow your team and splitting your time?
Yeah. So, when I first started out, I was just, the sole kind of community role in the company and kind of focusing on that, doing it myself. We eventually got to a point where we realized, okay, there needs to be more. I was promoted and they told me, here, go and hire and, build a team. So I would say once I got to that turning point where I still had to kind of continue community efforts while hiring a team, it was very hard. I definitely was giving a lot more hours, than usual to make sure that I was getting everything done. I will say that I probably put a lot of the community efforts on hold and was putting more emphasis on the hiring because I knew that then eventually it would pay off and we can run ahead a lot quicker. So it was just kind of trying to find that balance, working extra hours and, maybe, putting the community on a little back burner so I can get more people helping me.
Yep. I get that. They kind of go slow today so we can go faster tomorrow.
Exactly.
Gotcha. So now that you mentioned that we're hiring this global team in this past role, what were the key functions across community that you were really building out with your team?
So if it was solely up to me, I would definitely have wanted to hire kind of proper community roles. But we obviously did have, the kind of KPIs from the company and different things we needed to achieve. So even though we were the community team and my role was director of global community, I would say that the roles I was hiring for were kind of split between more customer success, customer relation roles, and then proper community roles. So I was managing a team that essentially was doing both. So I was looking to hire 3 sort of customer facing roles, and then 2 community proper, community manager roles. And I already had 1 community partnerships and events manager who was already previously hired. So she was there and helping me a lot.
That's awesome. It's interesting. I've thought about this. Should I ever get to be in that same position you were, of how I would kind of build a community team? So I'm going to go down a little side path here because I think that this is a really fun space to discuss. I've kind of thought about you'd have a community leader, and then you have engagement, content, events, and ops is kind of like the 4 pillars. And then over here on kind of like a little island, you would have like a community program manager to help across those 4 teams, but also help internally across other teams too on like larger programs and projects and campaigns.
I love that vision. Yeah, that sounds like this kind of ideal community setup. And I think that, when it's done that way, kind of how you described, you can get so much more done and put a lot more emphasis on community. But as we both know, both of us community professionals, we know that sometimes it's a lot, more difficult for a company to understand the importance and understand that you need to, all hands on deck and have these different roles. So yeah, that was kind of more the situation here. But I love how you kind of broke it down. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And at least that's one of the key reasons I'm finding during at least like my current job search, is that I'm really hammering and learning about and digging into how companies are thinking about the business impact of community. So whether I'm on a team or a team of 1 today, I'd be in a position to clearly advocate for more resources, whether it's budget for people, tools, whatever, to better serve and support the community. So that's one thing I'm definitely focusing on.
Yeah, 100%. So important. So important.
Well, now we're going to kind of get back on track now that we've gone down that little rabbit hole. So you're hiring your global team remote first person really in the company to do that. How is the interview process set up for these new potential team members? And more specifically, I guess, like, were there specific skills, especially on the community focused roles, that you were looking for, or other traits that were really top of mind for you during this process?
So first, I'll say it was a bit of a mess. I'm not going to lie. It was a lot of trial and error in understanding, like, how do you hire, globally, which, we were looking to hire people in the US. So which states are we sticking to, one coast? Are we, so there was a lot of these questions that, we kind of like tested out and then failed and then kind of continued. But before I kind of dive into how we broke it down eventually, I recently just saw this video by Nisayar Yassin, aka Nas Daily, where he discussed their hiring process. And he said that they solely base their hiring on an assignment, on completing an assignment. They don't look at any other, demographic information. And thanks to that, they have more women in leadership roles in their company. And I just really love that. And I feel like, a lot more companies should kind of take that on themselves too, to really be looking at, the personality or the experience or whatever, as opposed to other factors that, can cause bias. So specifically, in my case, when we were hiring, the most important thing to me was soft skills. And I know that could be a little counterintuitive, but that was more important to me than proper community experience. So, I knew that for myself, I was given a chance to grow and learn in this role, and I wanted to give that opportunity to others. And thankfully, I was in a position where I could afford to do that. I know a lot of people hiring can't always afford to hire without experience, and that's completely legit. But in this situation, I did have that opportunity. So I wanted to take advantage of it. So as I said, I already had 1 team member that was already hired. So she helped me a lot, kind of breaking it down. And one of the things that we actually wrote in the job description was we hire based on attitude, flexibility, competency, and commitment. And we really stuck to that. And until today, I'm really proud of that. That's really kind of what we were looking for and how we kind of like broke it down. When we were looking at the different CVs or getting on the calls. And if I'm telling you which, kind of specific traits I was looking for, I would say that one of the most important was empathy and emotional intelligence. Our community was a community of nonprofits. So, they work hard all the time to support others. It was so important to me that they had that empathy and support from us. Strong communication skills, key. Organizational skills were really important. You're working also with a lot of data and information, and you have to be organized and on top of it. Creativity and fast learners, because like I said, if you don't have that experience, but if you're a fast learner and you have all those other soft skills, you can get there. You can learn it and get the job done and be an amazing community professional. So I think that's kind of, the gist of it. Obviously, for each role, there was more specific things that were, a want, not a must, but that we would like to have. But I would say that's kind of, the main gist of it.
That's amazing and super insightful. I love how you kind of broke it down, especially against the whole notion of experience versus non-experience. And when you're looking for those who might not have exact experience and you can afford to hire and spend more time on the learning and development and the onboarding piece for them, then you can focus on the things that, as you said, like truly cannot almost be taught, like the empathy or your emotional intelligence, communication skills, creativity, things of that nature. So thank you so much for clearly differentiating that. I think that was really unique and something that's definitely thought-provoking.
Thanks. Yeah, I wanted to add on that I just also remembered that two of my team members were actually social workers that then did this sort of, they moved into tech. And I feel like they came with so much to offer, right? So they didn't have the proper tech experience, but they had everything else that we were looking for. And they ended up being so amazing. And, they were a great addition to the team. And the last point on that is, once I did start hiring and we had already a few in the team, it, in a sense, made it a little more difficult for the future hirings, because now I also put a lot of emphasis on each personality type that I had in the team, because I wanted to make sure that the future hires have the right personalities to balance out the different team members, so that we're bringing in all the different strengths, and that so together everyone can kind of be a cohesive and strong team. And that's also something that a lot of times I feel people don't think about. They're just like, oh, this candidate is so amazing, let's get them on board. But you always have to think, who do I have already? And what are they bringing to the table? And how does that balance out? And so that's kind of, my thought process when I was towards like the final hires of the team. I would say I was putting a lot more emphasis on that.
That makes a lot of sense, especially I would imagine to avoid it almost becoming an echo chamber of at least personalities. So it's not like we all think this one way, and if you don't, you're like over here kind of by yourself, kind of not feeling really connected to the rest of the team.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, you're dropping all of the knowledge nuggets today. I love this. Thank you.
You're so kind. Thank you.
It's all you. So now that we've hired the team is hired, you're starting to get everybody like going in their nice little directions. How did you focus on each person's professional growth and development who was on your team? And like, what did that look like?
So I love this question because it's honestly one of the most important things to me. As a manager, I think it should be the most important thing to any manager. So it started off, from day one, that when each person was hired, I would have an introduction, conversation with them where I would learn about them personally, not professionally, right? We already been through that. We know that they're great. But I would want to know about, what's your birthday? What foods do you like? As a foodie, of course. And, what kind of activities do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy? And just everything, that I could think of, and everything was written down so that I could remember it and utilize it moving forward in the team. And then obviously we would have weekly one-on-ones. So at the beginning, they were actual meetings. Eventually, we turned it async because we did have people that were remote, so to make it more efficient. And then it was only kind of a meeting if it was requested. But in these one-on-ones, I created a template where they would have to fill out what they worked on the past week, their focus for the coming week, if they need my help, and also accomplishments, wins, and challenges. To me, that's really critical. It's important to celebrate the wins, even though they're small. And a lot of times, if they came and they were like, I don't think I had one, I would try to remember something that they did and kind of highlight that. And also, I would tell them that if they did have, it wasn't mandatory, but if they had lessons learned and things that they would have done differently, I also wanted to hear about that in those sessions or in that template. And that was actually a very insightful section. I learned a lot about, the team's way of thinking, how each person, viewed themselves, viewed their work, viewed their worth. And it helped me also understand where I need to focus on, where I need to kind of push and help and strengthen, where they're doing great. So I really enjoyed that element of getting that information from our weekly sessions. And we also had a team weekly. And this is one of something that I really loved. Everyone would just share very briefly, go around, share very briefly what they're working on, because it's important that the team is always aware of what everyone is, doing. And we would always end the weekly session where each person had to go around and start a sentence saying, I am remarkable because, and then whatever that was. Now, this actually came about. It was from a workshop that we brought for our community members. And then I was inspired by it and then, adapted it to my weekly team meetings. But basically, I Am Remarkable is actually a Google initiative. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a Google initiative that empowers women and underrepresented groups to celebrate achievements in the workplace. And one of the things is, you have to kind of tell yourself, I am remarkable because, like, once a week. And so we did that the whole team. And it was such a lovely way to get to know each other better personally. And also just to start off the day and the week in a positive, energetic kind of way to get work done. So that was one of my favorite things that I hope I'll also be able to bring in, to my job now once I start, building a team as well. It's something I definitely want to continue promoting in each space.
Wow. I love that line of I'm remarkable because, especially as someone who's very hard on themselves.
Yes.
So it's like, it goes into the whole, you need to learn how to give yourself some grace.
100%. And it wasn't easy.
Like recognize yourself. Oh no.
Yeah.
As someone, at least for me, it is not easy. Like I struggle with it, which is interesting now that I'm starting to think more about it during this call.
Yeah, it's,
Oh gosh.
what you're saying is so true. Like, I had team members that, like yourself, were like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I don't know. And then, a few months in, they were waiting, to kind of get their sentence out there and share it. Like you really see the change also. At the beginning, people are kind of sharing, very basic things or, sharing similar items to what the person before them said. And then as we kind of continued growing as a team and sharing this week by week, the sentences became a lot deeper, a lot stronger, a lot more meaningful. So what you're saying is true. It's, it's not an easy thing, but it's so important, especially for people who don't feel comfortable celebrating, their wins or what they're good at. It's so critical.
Yeah. I think that it also, in a unique way, it also starts to really kind of create like a mini community. It starts to really build that trust and those really meaningful relationships, as you were saying, amongst your peers when you're being this honest. So I think that that's a really unique thing. At least I don't know too many people who do something like that intentionally to build team culture.
I mean, I hope there's many more out there that are doing things like this, but it is something that I was really kind of proud of that I, could implement, that it was so successful, and that I hope to kind of bring into, future teams as well.
Well, if they're not doing it today, they will after our conversation drops, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of hit on a lot of the different elements of leading, growing a global team. As the leader of said team, what were a few learnings or insights that one stood out, to you, two, that you would share with others who are in this position of they're currently going through it or they're about to go through it?
It's a continuous learning process. Especially when you're hiring from different backgrounds, work cultures, personality types, even down to the bureaucracy and technicalities. I learned so much about that, from hiring in Tel Aviv to hiring in Boston to hiring in Florida to hiring, it was just very, very different. And I think the key is to really be an active listener and not assume that you know everything, and to really research, ask, listen, explain that this is new, explain, if I'm making a mistake, if something is done wrong, tell me, listen to that feedback. And also, at the end of the day, I really think it's about, being mindful and respectful and trusting the people, right? It's all about trust when you're, managing a remote team, especially. You're not seeing these people in the office, you're not. And so you just really have to put all your trust and leave it, to them to kind of like prove themselves in that sense. But when you trust someone, you really also get that trust back, and you see it's earned, and they feel it. And it's not just, saying you trust, but really showing you trust. So it's not just, in words, but in actions. I think that's also something I learned, that it's a lot more than our words. We really have to show that we're trusting and that we're listening and that we're respecting. And I would say those are some of the main lessons that I learned during this process.
Quick question that stood out to me. How do you show trust to your remote team members?
It's a question. So I would say it started from even the smallest thing. I remember one of my team members, she wrote me like, hey, tomorrow at 9 a.m. my time, I'm going to be at a doctor's appointment, but I'll be back by 10 my time. So and I said to her, you don't need to tell me that. I don't need to know you're going to the doctor at 9 a.m. your time. I trust you. You're doing the work. You're getting it done. As long as you're not missing out on a meeting or something, you do you. You don't need to share with me every little detail in that sense. And I saw the kind of look on her face, the shock, and I guess then relief. And I feel like, so yes, I used words to convey it, but it was also in my actions. And I really never did ask again on, where have you been? What were you doing? I completely, put my trust in them that they're getting the work done. They can divide their day however they want. I'm not a micromanager. I don't believe you have to work 9 to 6, especially when I'm working opposite hours than you. So even more so, it's not so critical to me. I know that I have to be flexible. They have to be flexible. So I guess that was one way that I show trust, by really kind of reminding them, like, I trust you. You don't have to tell me every little thing. Everything's okay. I believe in you. And yeah, there's other ways, but I feel like that's the first one that came to mind in terms of showing trust.
Awesome. Thank you for showing. And as we conclude and kind of head towards the end of our chat for the day, what are 3 community trends you're watching for in 2023 and beyond?
Ooh, okay. So one of them is obviously, I feel like you're not going to be surprised, but community managers not being replaced by AI, but just enhanced by it. That's kind of a trend that a lot of people are talking about, of course. I even recently, David Spinks wrote an article in his newsletter about it, and I really loved his article there. So that's a trend that I'm completely, following along with, and very interested to see where it takes us. Another one is pop-up communities. I don't know if like you've heard this term, but I only heard about it because I joined this community webinar hosted by Guild, and they spoke about it. And it's basically short lifespan communities that, let's say, pop up around a conference or something like that is becoming a lot more popular. So that was really interesting to me. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, and how maybe, I could benefit from it as well, either in my, community that I do on my own time or through my professional community. And I think the last one is community data. I think that, yes, I knew you're going to like this one, Joel. So I feel like up until now, it's been very hard for community managers to kind of, show data, share data, understand what they need to show. I do follow Richard Millington very closely from Feverbee. He's like the data guru for community, in my opinion, and I love all his content. But I feel like finally we're in a place where all of us community professionals are getting a little better in understanding how we define the relevant data, how we measure it, what's important, what isn't important. And it's only honestly starting recently. I feel like before that it was a little all over the place. And I think 2023 is kind of bringing it home. So I would say those are the three that I'm looking out for.
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. I would equally add a very nice little quick asterisk to the data one of we also are finally getting tools that can realistically support data, data, I'll say informed conversations. I say informed, not driven, because I'm a fan of balancing the data with also what you're hearing from members. Not everything can be conveyed, excuse me, in a black and white way in community. You're dealing with people, it's not product usage or something like that.
100%.
So I'm a data informed person, but yes.
I think even you were the one who told me, right, about Notion's integration then with the data analytics, right? That was you. So yeah.
Yeah. So they just launched actually Notion Analytics. So they launched their own capabilities. And they also, speaking of Notion, they're getting some free airtime today up in here. They also recently launched Notion AI.
Oh, yes. I'm a huge fan of Notion. Honestly, I love everything they do. So I would say if I'm watching a community trend, it's watching Notion. That's also another trend for me. Complete fangirling here, but I really love, I think they do it so well. They do community so well, and it's inspiring.
I'll agree, but fanboying.
Yes.
Well, Tali, thank you so much for being on the Community Led Growth Show today. If people want to follow and or connect with you after listening or watching our conversation, what are their best channels or handles for them to do so?
So my favorite platform, LinkedIn, that is where I am super active and would love to connect with everyone. So it's Tali Leibowitz on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to connect with new people. So really, I hope everyone should feel comfortable to reach out.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Joel. You too.